Defence Minister Rajnath Singh announced the Agnipath scheme, calling it a historic move. At the same time, there was an announcement by the Modi government saying that 10 lakh government jobs which will be filled up in the next 18 months. Now, both of these together make for a very interesting insight into the central government's take on the employment issue. Now, we'll be discussing both the schemes in detail. The Agnipath scheme in particular is a very new way of looking at recruitment in the armed forces and has seen its share of commentary coming in on both sides. But overall, the big message out there is that the central government is stepping in as an employer. This is happening at a time when employment generation is still a big question mark, especially from private enterprise, and jobs need to be created for the large number of youth and employable youth that India generates every year. Is the central government stepping in once again as the employer of choice? That is what we're going to be discussing on the show today. But first, let me just return to this Agnipath scheme and play out for you the comments from Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today.
भारतीय सेनाओं को विश्व की बेहतरीन सेना बनाने के लिए उस दृष्टि से आज कैबिनेट कमेटी ऑन सिक्योरिटी ने भी एक ऐतिहासिक फैसला किया है। आज का अग्निपथ नामक एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव योजना हम ला रहे हैं, जो हमारी आर्म्ड फोर्सेस में ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव चेंजेस लाकर उन्हें फुली मॉडर्न और वेल इक्विप्ड बनाएगी। अग्निपथ योजना में भारतीय नौजवानों को बतौर अग्निवीर आर्म्ड फोर्सेस में सेवा का अवसर प्रदान किया जाएगा।
All right, to speak more on this, I'm joined by K K Sinha, former Major General and defence expert. Yogendra Narain, former Defence Secretary, is joining us on the show. And I'm also speaking with Dhiraj Nayyar, Chief Economist at Vedanta. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on the India development debate. Major General Sinha, let me begin with your comments on the scheme overall. It's being seen as really out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to certain, motives like reducing the average age of soldiers within armed forces. It will cut the pension bill also significantly for the central government. Do you think it will add more muscle to the Indian armed forces?
Tamana, as the government has announced that it is going to be a very transformative reform in the armed forces as far as the manpower is concerned, personal below the officer's rank. It is a structural change. It is a structural reform which is taking place after 7 decades of Indian military. Yes, I believe a lot of thinking has gone, a lot of research has gone, and after that the government has taken the step. The time will tell. There are apprehensions which the people have been saying, but overall it looks that basically with matching with the requirement of the hybrid war which the world is now witnessing, this step has got 3-4 layers on which it is working. One is that the military has to be a cutting edge military, and as the RM said that they want to make it the world class. It is world class as on today, but they wanted to have absolutely top notch in the armed forces of the world. And this decision has been taken by Cabinet Committee of Security. So I take it that a lot of thinking has gone, a lot of research has gone. I was told that, the 8 countries module has been taken. First thing, in India, it is very unique that Indian military is absolutely a volunteer force. It is not a conscript, on which you just force someone through and then make them join. Which the most of the
advantage. What is the big advantage, sir? Mr. Sinha, what is the big advantage here? Because yes, you reduce the age, you reduce the pensions, but something like being in the armed forces requires very high levels of conviction. Can they be restricted to 4 years of service? Will 4 years of service, out of which one assumes 1.5, 2 years, or maybe that much will go in training, will that give the armed forces what they require?
See, that is what actually apprehensions are. the people are talking about, because the Indian military has got regimentation is a unique feature. Nowhere in the world, the regimentation which we talk about, regimentation is the thing which moves you, the Indian military, and makes it absolutely unique. So there are apprehensions, but as it's been brought out, the age limit is being brought out by 4 to 5 years, younger people will be joining, technical savvy. You have got reservists which will be coming out, because basically 3.5 years of your color service, 6 months goes in training, and then you get rotated. The beauty like this, that 25% of these people who has been identified, out of that very deep selection will be done, where will be they retained to make, they will be the part of the professional army, the cutting edge army, and that will be made. So it is more or less, absolutely, I think, as on today, what I feel, if it is controlled very well, if it is, because you have to take out of the 7 decades of, the thing which has been developed, which is Indian armed forces are the world class. So you have to make it with the modern changes. So you have, the challenges are huge. I don't talk about, because I am from the military, so I will not talk about, pension, whether they give me some benefit. But the reservist, yes, reservist is one aspect which any country on today's warfare requires a huge reservist force, which you will have.
It'll help bump up your reservist force. Yogendra Narain, can you give us some context to this? Is this a complete out-of-the-box kind of scheme, or have short commission services or short duration services been in the mix, or have been thought about for a while?
There are three distinct features of this scheme which I see. One is that by inducting about 45,000 to 50,000 of these young men between the ages of 17 and a half, 21, we are getting
women.
Civilians.
Sorry to interject, just to add that. It will be young men and women.
Young men and women, I agree with. So, keeping that in fact, what is happening is that a large part of the civilian population every year will be getting military training. And this is a big advantage. Instead of compulsory military training like in Israel, or instead of conscription, as Major General talked about, it's going to be a voluntary force still, but it is going to take in about 45 to 50,000 civilians. And as he said, out of this, 25% will be retained at the end of 4 years. So as far as that regiment portion is concerned, that will continue for these 25%. For the rest 75, it's a very good out-of-the-box thinking to train the civilians in warfare, in acquaint them with the weapons, acquaint them with the structure of the army, with the organization of the army. And they, as he said, they will act as reservists and also act as disciplined civilians, because once after 4 years they go out, they will still be having a large part of this military discipline.
But why, sir, if you could explain this, Mr. Narain, and pardon me for interrupting, because I think this is an important point. Why do you want civilians in such large numbers who have received training of defense forces? How would that help the nation?
You see, if we have trained civilians who are acquainted with the army structure, the army discipline, it gives trained youths and trained civilians to be a part of society. I see a very larger aspect of this. And if we can get a disciplined young man, you see, and they have been assured employment for at least 4 years. So after the age of 21, of course, what will happen is that they will be still free to join other services, because, you know, even for the IAS, a lot of army people also get to the IAS and civil services. By the age of 21, they will be still eligible to get into the civil services. So and if we get these, I found in my service career that these young men who come out after serving in the army, they do very well. They take risks. They do out of the box thinking, and they become very good officers. So I would think that this sort of background of the army, or as the military as we call it, it will help us both in the public and private sector.
Okay.
And we can work with greater sort of zeal and enthusiasm, and yet keep a touch with the army and the Air Force and the Navy, because it is necessary for every civilian to understand the issues, security issues facing this country.
Sure,
And
but this is
if we can get a large enough force of
this is the,
civilians
the
to
numbers
understand.
initially the numbers are small. It's 46,000 in the first lot. There is no clarity yet on totally how many will be inducted. Dhiraj, I'm looking at this from a broader perspective. This is giving youth a chance. I mean, if you look at the details, 30 to 40,000 rupees a month, you have to give 30% of that as sort of your saving for when you leave these services, if you choose to, and you walk away with 11 to 12 lakh rupees tax free at the end of it. Now, you would have a youngster at the most 25, 26 who is got that lump sum of money, some experience, educational qualifications will also be covered under this, and they're set up for life. It's actually a great employment option. And is that the real pitch? If you look at this in conjunction with the other announcement of filling up 10 lakh jobs in the next 18 months, the pitch is to provide good quality employment.
Well, let me put it into the larger context that there are about 8 to 10 million Indians who enter the workforce every year. So even if you say this is huge, then on the army side, it's 40,000. I mean, the armed forces, Agnipath program, it's 40,000 a year. The civil, in the government side, they've announced 10 lakhs over the next two years, 1 million. So it's a fraction of the jobs that are required. So let's also keep that in mind, that the majority of jobs in this country for new entrants to the workforce have to be generated outside the government, whether it's the armed forces or the mainstream civilian government. This is not the solution to India's employment problem.
It's not. I agree, it's not a solution, Dhiraj. But look at the positioning. The government is coming in with a solution.
So they have been under criticism for youth unemployment in particular, or youth underemployment. So they're clearly addressing it. Now if you look at the vacancies, it's not like all the I'm now talking about the 10 lakh vacancies. It's not like all the 10 lakh vacancies opened up today or yesterday or the last 1 month or 1 year. They've been accumulated over time. Now they are filling them in. Obviously, there are political reasons and good political reasons, given that there's an election coming up in less than 2 years from now. So this is a politically opportune time to fill those vacancies over the next 1.5 years. So yes, it will be good. It will be good for those 10 lakh individuals. I'm still concerned. I still would like to see where these people are going to be taken. Is it for clerical jobs or what we call peon multitasking staffer jobs? Is it for officer jobs? Because the army as well, this recruitment is for not for officers. This is for the foot soldiers, right? So, and it's going to replace the earlier system, what Major General had briefly referred to, the regimental system and the recruitment by caste and region and so on. So this is a replacement of that. So in army, actually, what they're doing is something else. It's a longer term objective, because the 10 lakh filling up is short term. But in the army, I think it's much more long term thinking, in the sense that you reduce the burden of pensions and so on. You make the fighting force, which are the Jawans and so on, much younger. But the challenge will still remain that, even now we have short service commissions. Even now, the foot soldiers retire much earlier than officers. At the age of, say, 35, they're retired. And it's not so easy for them to find employment again. So one advantage of doing it 4 years is that you're much younger. So you're looking for a new next job or next career at 25, 26 rather than 35, 36. But the fact remains that, if you say that there are not enough jobs overall or not enough good jobs overall, what happens after 4 years, right? So I think the challenge still remains. While it's not, I'm completely.
My point is, all things considered,
but I think if we. Yes, it's a good short term.
All things considered, 30 to 40,000 rupees a month, where you will be trained by, one of the best employers in the country in terms of, you will be taken care of, you will be trained, you will be given great life skills as well. And then when you leave, you have a neat little kitty tax free.
A new thing. I mean, there are already recruitment into the army at the below officer level, which has not happened in the last 2 years because of COVID. But it's in place of that. You're saying as though this is something new, but people are recruited into lower than officer positions, but for longer tenures. Now you're reducing the tenure and saying only 25% of those people will make it to a longer commission, right? So look at it in that context. It's not totally, it's replacing something. And while it's a welcome move and it's out of the box thinking, but I think it's not solving. We have to look at it 2-3 years down the line in terms of what kind of quality jobs these people get after their 4 years. So for 4 years is great, but are we creating enough jobs, good jobs in the economy, in the private sector? Because the government sector, sort of create at most 5% of the jobs required. So I'm not even talking about the military importance or military strategy. I'm not an expert in that. So that General and Mr. Narain are better placed to answer what this does to the army. But in terms of employment, certainly it helps the younger segment get into a job, those 40,000 jobs. But after 4 years, so we still need to keep our focus, while this is welcome, keep our focus on the fact that majority of the jobs for new entrants or even for these people after 4 years will have to come in the private sector.
So the role of the private sector in creating jobs, of course, cannot be diminished. The urgency to fill in jobs also may come with the growing clamor for, the unemployment issue, etc. But coming back to what this means for the army and what happens to these kids once the 4 years are up. Yogendra Narain, would you like to weigh in on that? First of all, the point that I made in the beginning, for a job like this, it's not just a job, right? It's a passion, it's a life choice to join the armed forces or the defense forces. Is this something that you can do just for 4 years and do it with all the passion that the job requires?
See, in 4 years, you're going to get the basic skill training which the Army and the Air Force and Navy give to this young man who joins. And after 4 years, it's the part of the scheme that he will also be given skill development, skill training in particular areas, so that he can get a job later on, even after that. And they've also promised, according to the scheme, to have bank loans given to them for settling down. So I think even the after 4 years issue is being well taken care of by the government, both in terms of skill training as well as bank loans and this 10-12 lakhs that will be given as the initial capital. You might be noticing that these unicorns and startups that are coming up in India, I mean, 10-12 lakhs is not a very major sum, but it's enough for some young, innovative gentleman to start thinking on getting his own factory or his own startup. So I think all these factors have been taken into consideration. And the major thing is that you are getting a trained force, not fully trained.
Dhiraj is nodding his
trained
head.
In the basic art of warfare.
Yeah, sure.
And basically, I see it also that civilians are getting now going to training in discipline and understanding the working and the security threats to this country. Because we've been always saying that the civilians are not
all Indian
aware
civilians
of the
respect the armed forces massively and are sympathetic to all of their causes. 1 minute. Dhiraj, you wanted to come in on a point that Mr. Narain was making?
Yeah, this is a scheme for a particular type of individual who may not have even passed class 12. They will, as part of the scheme, help people get through class 12. So what Mr. Narain is saying in terms of entrepreneurship, startup, so that is a different kind of person who does that. This is not commissioning into the army as officers or giving them opportunities as officers. It's at a lower level, right? So I think how much do you pack into a 4 year? You're going to teach them military, you're going to teach them skills, then what are they going to serve? I mean, 4 years is not that long a time. 4 years is what you and I spend at university, learning just one thing. So you're packing in military training, skills, as well as putting them out on the frontiers to defend the country.
I'm trying to figure out,
I think it's a bit much to expect.
Is this good for the youngsters as an employment option, or is it good for the armed forces, defense forces? Who is it better for?
It's definitely good for those who have not passed up to class 12, because there are very few good jobs of this kind available for them, right? Getting 40,000 a month if you've not even passed class 12. So definitely a good option for them. Whether this works for the military, again, is something I would...
All right, Major General Sinha, the question of whether this works for the defence forces, out of 4 years, you will spend some amount of time, money, effort, training. 25% of them will make the cut for long-term service. How many of them are finally eligible or useful to the defence forces is not clear. What's in it for them? How does it help apart from cutting down pension costs and reducing your average age?
Now the decision has been taken by the government. So I will not comment what will going to happen. Let's think positively. What the government is trying, employment, having a generation. I am not bothered. See, Indian military is a cutting-edge organization. This is the only organization which is delivering at every front. And war fighting is very important and very serious business. So now the government, what they are looking for, and why they are going for this reform. Reform is in 3 layers. First thing, you see, it is already there in officers' rank. There is a short service commission and there is a permanent commission. So short service commission is the, and out of that retention is about 15 to 20%. Here you are actually doing 25% you're retaining after 3.5 years of color service. And I am sure they will not do any skill training during that time. They will be doing what exactly they will do, will be doing the hard military duties. And that is something no one can teach you in colleges. No one can teach you any university, no schools and colleges. And what has been brought out that these people are dropouts of the school. It's not like that. They are coming with a choice. When the NDA I joined, National Defence Academy, I was also just 12th pass. But when we have, and I'm already a doctorate, I'm already, MSc, I have a double MSc, MPhil. So that is not the point. Army takes care of it. What we are bothered about today, that we require very cutting edge, and let me finish it. We require a cutting edge military. We are not looking forward to whether the opportunity is there. That is the government will take care of.
Which is why I'm asking you, is this giving the military its requirement of a cutting edge force?
The apprehension part.
I'm saying when the good general joined the army after class 12, he got 3-4 years at NDA. He got 1 year at IMA. 4 years he got training which enabled him to then do MPhil and PhD and so on. This is a 4 year in all. Your skilling, your training, your education and your fighting all happens in 4 years. So it's not equivalent to the general joining after class 12. It's simply not the same thing. I mean, it doesn't make sense to compare the two.
Can I come in, Tamana?
Yes.
Let's we finish it one point, See, please don't mix up, whether it is giving a job opportunity. Job opportunity what? After every year, see, it is working out that every year you are taking about 50,000 people. This year it will be 46,000. That 25,000, 25 more. And it is sailor, it is soldiers and airmen. All are getting recruited in this. Thereafter, they are employed 3.5 years. And I can tell you, 3.5 years is the peace and war timing. So, and they are also on technical side. They are heavily packed. And this is the challenge. If the government, if the people have accepted this, because the armed forces accepted it in principle. So the challenge lies in recruitment and training. Training is not. Recruitment training is just being given 6 months training. In short service commission, officer is trained for 9 months.
So you're saying they're ready to perform in the first 6 months. So out of their 4 years, 3.5 years, they're available and of utility to the defence forces. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And, the armed forces will try to, squeeze that 3.5 years of active. They have to work very hard. And it is the leadership of that.
No, I mean, whichever way you get talent. Whichever way you get talent is great. And it's definitely out of the box thinking. It's making it lucrative, attractive and exciting. And yes, the bigger umbrella of providing jobs also comes into play. I want to thank all of you for joining us on this chat, but I completely have to wrap. Thank you so much for speaking with us.